fan days, just an incredible testament to the people of Nebraska and how they support all the teams. It's been a big week around here with Coach Cook's retirement and being such a legendary coach, not only in this athletic department, but for the sport of volleyball all over the country. And, so to have been able to, I texted him at one point during the season, and I said, I've been trying to find the words to describe your team, and they just seem to play with such freedom. And, you find programs that have players that play with such freedom, it has to start at the top. So it's going to be a great loss with his retirement. However, with that said, I've known Danny since she played softball, tried to recruit her as a softball player. Didn't get her the first time around. I actually sat with her as close as I'm sitting to Amy right now when she was going into her 5th year and tried to recruit her again. Couldn't quite get her. I thought we had her on the hook at that point in time. So believe me, now that she's back in the Husker Inn, I'm going to ask her if she has some eligibility left because she was quite a pitcher. So anyway, I know that's a different kind of opening statement, but thank you for being here.
Staying internal during the fall and then having these few weeks of practices so far, just what do you think you learned from the team and the ability to focus on each other during that period?
Well, we talked about that a lot in the fall, that we wanted to make sure we were going to compete, but we wanted to have it to be a controlled, competitive environment just with all the players that we had returning from injuries and surgeries. But what I did find out about this team is because they had so many opportunities to compete, they were very competitive. And Jordy said in an interview yesterday that sometimes when we're going at practice, we get a little chippy. And she meant that in the most complimentary way, because we know that when we compete against one another, we're making each other better. And so I've really enjoyed that. And so, like even tomorrow, we're going to do a full scrimmage, and it's a little different lineup. I just keep rolling different lineups, and they keep going against different players. But it's really time to play somebody else. I always think that this time of year, but when we haven't played anybody else in the fall, it's really time. I think some of our hitters have had 25 to 30 at-bats off of some of our pitchers, and that's a lot.
Look at that first weekend then, 3 top 25 teams, a couple of the best pitchers in the country too. What's the challenge of going out there, and what would you like to see from the team that first week?
Well, the biggest thing I want to see from them is that they go out there and they are the competitors that they are, that they can be free enough to really compete, because we have competitors. And, sometimes when you get out, especially the first of the season, we've been outside, so we've been very fortunate that way, but it's still going to feel different. You've got a team that's very high caliber in Tennessee opening night. It's under the lights. The adrenaline's going to be going crazy. And sometimes, adrenaline can play funny things with you. So I'm hoping that we can harness our adrenaline enough so they can just really feel their competitive spirit come through. And we're prepared. I feel like we've prepared well. They work well. We've worked a lot of combinations. I think this is the first time in a long time that we've been at least 2 deep at any position, that I feel like we could roll a lot of lineups out, and a lot of our players can help us win. I feel the same thing about our pitching staff. We've got 5 that are healthy. Yay, let's keep it that way. But this schedule has been by design. We wanted to come out really early and just test our mettle. And even if you don't have exactly the record that you might think, we're still going to learn and grow from it and play for the long game. And I think we're going to be very competitive, and it's exciting.
Hey, with Jordy less than a year removed from a major knee surgery, is she full speed ready to go, or will you be bringing her along a little slowly, or at least monitoring her a little closer?
She is full speed and ready to go. And the good thing, if you want to talk about a good thing of when her injury occurred, it was in February last year. So, typically in an ACL recovery, they want a good solid 9 months before they call you fully ready to go, and we have nearly 12. So we've been really, and she's been able to throw a lot of live and, go full off a mound. And, I'm not saying that it won't, because she got hurt in pitching in a game, first game of the season. So I know that might enter her mind, but she's a competitor, and she can draw on all the games or scrimmages that she's thrown in the last several months with our team.
Do you think
Pardon me, there was talk last year about her hitting in addition to pitching. Is that the plan going forward?
Not just her, and I want to address this because we've had a lot of players that they're versatile and they're athletic. And so Jordy has not only worked with pitching and hitting, we've also worked her at first base. But we've had other players that have played a lot in our program that are working a secondary position too, that could see time in other positions. And it's largely part because of what they do to our lineup. And so we're going to obviously want to put our best lineup out there that can help us generate runs. Of course, we're going to need to manage her workload because she's going to be very important to us in this circle. So like when we play in these early season tournaments, when we have multi-day games, we might rest her a game, or we might just use her as a closer in a game. That would be different. When we get into conference games and it's a 3-game series, it's kind of all bets are off. We're gonna work her to help us win, and she'll do the same thing.
First base. That was something you guys did with her in the fall. Something she'd never done before at that point. What have you seen from her since then that has, led that to potentially maybe at one point being a possibility?
Well, like I said, she's athletic. And I just think when you think about our sport and you think about the positions of pitcher and catcher, they're just so high intensity. I mean, you have to be locked in and locked down every single pitch, that whenever you can take a pitcher or a catcher, quite frankly, and move them to a different position, it's almost like they can just see the game through a different lens and exhale. It's not that it's easier, it's just different. And the level of focus and intensity is, I think, sometimes is refreshing when they come back to their primary position, and I think sometimes it actually helps them free up to really just think hitting's fun. I mean, it's not that pitching and catching aren't fun, but it's just a different focus.
Sometimes when players are rehabbing from such serious injuries, they tend to maybe disengage from the team. That doesn't seem like the case with Jordy. How much did she stay engaged throughout this past year?
She was very engaged, and that was not only her personality, but like we said, we had many season-ending injuries last year, but we make a really concerted effort, starting with our players, to have everybody, no matter what level of participation they're allowed to based on the medical chart, that they're always feeling like they're part of a team, even if it's just keeping a scout or doing something with the chart. You hear a lot of times, it's hard to be injured. I think the hardest thing in athletics is going through an injury and the psyche of what young people go through when they have an injury. And so the last thing we want as a coaching staff and as our players, because they do believe, they do work really hard at being a family, the last thing they want to feel like is that they're isolated or separated from that. So she's done a nice job, but I think our culture, embraces what we do with how we integrate our injured players.
If you look at shortstop, with Billy graduating, how nice is it to have somebody in Ava Cusack who's very experienced and able to fill in there right away?
Yeah, that you bring up a really good point. You don't replace a Billy Andrews, right? But the fact that we have an experienced shortstop that has talent of her own, she's a really nice athlete. She does some really special things. So I don't know that anybody's going to compare her to Billy, but I don't really want that. I want her to, blaze her own trail, and she's athletic enough too. And, she may end up being our leadoff hitter. I don't know. We're still kind of working through that. People have asked for projected lineups, and when I say, well, I have about 3, which one do you want? And a lot of it is based on matchups and different people's strengths and who's on the mound. And so, but yeah, I think Ava is slotted in as our shortstop, and she's going to do a nice job for us.
With some of those projected lineups, the outfield could be whatever you want it to be. Just what are the challenges and the pros of having so many potential combinations?
Yeah. Well, even when you think about the outfield, the one thing that Lori Sipple, who's also our outfield coach, does a really nice job is she gets them really comfortable playing any position in the outfield. And, it might be when we're scrimmaging, they may just rotate. Remember how you play workup? And they're playing every outfield position every other inning. And what that does is it gives us a time to really get a lens on who moves better to the foul line in this field. You just see things. You start to notice things. So then you kind of whittle it down to which 2 outfield positions do each of our outfielders play better. And then you go to, let's go with Hannah Camazin. I mean, Hannah's a really good outfielder, but Hannah's also a pitcher. So if Hannah, let's say, is starting in the outfield, but she's also potentially scheduled to relief pitch that game, and we're maybe thinking it's going to happen in the 5th inning, we may have her play the first 4, and then she's going to go warm up, so we've got to run somebody else in there. But we have the depth that we can do that, and that's the beauty of it. And we've really tried to have a lot of communication and talking points with our athletes that, you won't understand every lineup and how it's being written. I mean, I've had to study the DP flex rule again, just so I can know how we can maximize our movement with the lineup card. But what I do know is that they all want this team to do well, and I think there's an inherent trust that we're all working together to try to do that in the moment. And on game day, the biggest thing is winning, right? Winning as a team.
Time for 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, another one of those spots, third base. Where are you looking at there?
Sammy Bland right now has the nod there. McKinley Maleka is doing a very nice job, but I'm going to give Sammy the nod just for experience really in the game and just the kind of year that she had last year and just the athleticism that she has. And last year, if you look too, and this matters, she was pretty clutch. And she's one of those kids that the bigger the game, the brighter the lights, the more she seems to stand in and deliver for us.
With so many new players coming in, 5 freshmen, 6 transfers. 1, is that one of the biggest roster turnovers you've ever had? And 2, they seemed really tight-knit at that scrimmage. What kind of team building do you do to integrate that many players that fast?
I got asked that question out at Fan Day, too. That's so fascinating. So thank you for the question. I'm going to give the lion's share of the credit to our returning players. We sat down and we had a team meeting right after the seniors graduated from last year. I can never understate what they did to bring our culture back to a really healthy point. With that said, our promise to them when they graduated and their families, with tears in my eyes, is that our promise to you is we're going to take this and try to continue to build on it. And so when we went about systematically and strategically working to build our roster, we had 4 freshmen coming in and we graduated 9. So we left roster spots strategically to fill in with just people that had more experience in the game because, we knew that our players that were returning, we had some really good experience returning, but we knew we had some holes to fill. Let's talk about the shortstop position. That's predominantly one of them. We knew we needed some extra help in the circle. So as we went about that, I think all of our players, returning players, just bought into, they want Nebraska to be good. And whatever we can do to help with that. And I will keep saying, the team that was here at the end of last year, how they embraced that. And I don't know if they talked about it collectively, but they embraced every one of the transfers. I've never heard a word about any transfer feeling like they didn't feel welcome. And I think just that, that character of the human being behind the uniform does a lot of the team building. I know they work hard at it, and we work hard at it too, but I don't think there's any magic other than the magic of the people that are already in this program.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.